You've noticed it, haven't you? Not all at once, not dramatically, but in the way a conversation shifts when you walk into it. The way someone's face changes, just slightly, when you offer your thoughts. The way group chats go quiet after you send a message, then pick back up 5 minutes later around something else entirely. No one tells you directly. That's not how this works. People don't pull you aside and explain what they're feeling. They just recalibrate. They become a little more careful around you, a little more formal. They stop inviting you into certain conversations, and when you ask why, they say it's nothing, really. They just didn't think you'd be interested. And maybe you tell yourself that's true, but you've started to notice the pattern, and the pattern doesn't care what you tell yourself. It repeats. Different cities, different jobs, different social circles. And somehow, the same subtle withdrawal, the same unspoken distance. You're not doing anything obviously wrong. You're not cruel. You're not aggressive. You show up, you contribute, you're present. And still, people seem to find a way to keep you at arm's length. That's the part that doesn't make sense. Because if you were the problem, wouldn't it be more obvious? Wouldn't someone have said something by now? So you build explanations. Maybe they're intimidated. Maybe they're not used to someone who's direct, who doesn't waste time on performative niceties. Maybe they're too sensitive, too caught up in social games you've outgrown. Maybe they misread your tone, your intentions, the straightforwardness you offer as some kind of judgment. And those explanations feel reasonable, don't they? They protect something. They allow you to stay intact, to keep believing that the issue is a mismatch, not a mirror, that the problem is their misunderstanding, not something you're actively generating without meaning to. But here's the thing about patterns that repeat across contexts. If it were only about other people's insecurities, it wouldn't follow you this consistently. Different people, different environments, different dynamics, and yet the same quiet resistance emerges. The same sense that people would rather not engage too deeply. The same feeling that you're being tolerated more than welcomed. You can explain that away once, maybe twice, but after a while, the explanations start to sound like a script you're reading to avoid looking at something else. And that something else is uncomfortable, because it suggests that what people react to isn't what you say or do in any single moment. It's what being around you feels like over time. This is the part most people never consider, because it doesn't feel like something you're doing. You're not hostile, you're not manipulative, you don't go out of your way to make people uncomfortable. But discomfort doesn't always come from intent. Sometimes it comes from absence. The absence of warmth that isn't required but is still expected. The absence of a certain kind of reciprocity, a rhythm of give and take that makes interactions feel mutual instead of transactional. People don't usually describe this in words. They just feel it. They feel like they're doing more emotional labor than you are, like they're reaching toward you and you're staying exactly where you are, not pulling back but not meeting them either. Like there's a gap in the exchange that never quite closes. And over time, that gap becomes the thing they associate with you. It's not that you're cold, exactly. It's that you're measured, controlled. There's a part of you that stays behind glass, and people can sense it even if they can't articulate it. They start to feel like they're performing for you rather than connecting with you. Like you're observing the interaction from a slight distance, evaluating it, maybe even approving of it, but not quite inside it the way they are. And that feeling, that sense of uneven presence, is what they begin to avoid. Because here's what most people won't tell you. They don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be reachable. They need to feel like there's a version of you that can be affected by them, moved by them, made slightly different by knowing them. When that doesn't happen, when you remain fundamentally unchanged by interactions that cost other people something emotionally, it starts to register as a kind of rejection, even if you never intended it that way. You might think you're just being yourself, protecting your boundaries, not performing emotions you don't feel. And maybe that's all true. But the effect is the same. People begin to treat you the way you've been treating the relationship, with distance, with caution, with a certain low-level withholding that feels safer than investing fully. This is the part that's hard to see because the mechanism is invisible to you. You're not doing something wrong. You're not failing at a task. You're simply existing in a way that keeps the stakes low for you and high for everyone else. You're maintaining a kind of emotional efficiency that feels natural, maybe even necessary. But that efficiency has a cost, and the cost is that people stop trying to reach you. And once they stop trying, the dynamic becomes self-reinforcing. They pull back, and you notice it, and it confirms what you already suspected, that people are unreliable, that closeness is conditional, that it's safer not to depend on anyone too much. So you stay where you are. You don't chase, you don't adjust, and the distance widens. What you might not realize is that this distance isn't something happening to you. It's something you've been organizing your life around for longer than you remember. Because staying separate gives you something. It keeps you from being vulnerable in ways that feel dangerous. It keeps you from needing people in ways that might not be reciprocated. It allows you to observe, to analyze, to remain clear-headed while everyone else is caught up in the messy, unpredictable emotional exchange that you've learned to live without. And maybe that worked for a long time. Maybe it still works in certain contexts. But the thing about strategies that protect you is that they don't stop protecting you just because the threat is gone. They keep running in the background, shaping how you show up, shaping what people feel when they're near you, shaping the space between you and everyone else until that space becomes the most consistent thing about you. People don't hate you because you're broken. They pull away because the version of connection you're offering doesn't feel like connection. It feels like adjacency, like being allowed to exist near you, but never quite with you. And that's not something you announce. It's not something you defend. It's just the truth of how you move through rooms, through relationships, through years of interactions that never quite deepen the way other people's do. The cost of that shows up slowly. It shows up in the way people stop inviting you to things that matter, not because they dislike you, but because they've learned that your presence doesn't shift the emotional temperature of a room. You're fine to have around, but you're not necessary. You're not the person they think of when they need to feel less alone. It shows up in the way people describe you to others: competent, smart, reliable, but never warm. Never the person who made them feel seen. Never the one they'd call in a crisis, not because you'd say no, but because it wouldn't occur to them that you'd want to be called. It shows up in the way small conflicts with you tend to escalate in ways they don't with other people. Because when there's no reservoir of warmth to draw from, every disagreement becomes its own isolated event. There's no goodwill to soften it, no history of emotional generosity to balance the ledger. Just the transaction and the tension and the quiet decision to disengage rather than repair. And over time, that adds up. The pattern you've been noticing isn't new. It's just becoming harder to ignore. This isn't about being hated. Most people don't hate you. They just don't feel anything strong enough to override the effort it takes to stay close to someone who doesn't seem to need closeness. And maybe you don't. Maybe you've built a life that works without it. But the reactions you keep getting, the cooling, the distance, the sense that people would rather not, those aren't misunderstandings. They're reflections. Not of who you are in some fixed, permanent way, but of what you bring into a room without realizing it. The emotional temperature you set, the exchange you make available, the version of connection you're willing to offer, and the version you're not. You can't fix that by trying harder to be liked. You can't explain it away. You can only see it. And once you see it, You'll have to decide whether the protection it's been giving you is worth what it's cost. Because the distance between you and other people isn't something that happened to you. It's something you've been maintaining all along.